What is up, my fellow Vikings? Today's video is a part 2 to the strongest weapons in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which, if you haven't seen my first strongest weapons video, I'd suggest checking it out after this. Just an FYI that I don't focus on weapons you have to buy, because who wants gear that's hidden behind a paywall? We're going to jump straight in, starting with my favourite two-handed axe, Vaudez Bites. Not only is this, in my opinion, the best looking two-handed axe, but it has the highest attack, speed and stun stats out of all the axes in the game. The perk is that heavy combo finisher hits have a chance to drop a poison cloud, which I'm not too fussed about, as by this point I've already killed them and moved on to the next enemy. This axe is a really fun challenge to get, as you'll have to kill all the legendary animals scattered across the game and then deliver them all to your hunter's hut in Ravensthorpe. For all those locations and a bit more info, check out my video on it on screen and in the description. Next up, we have Ragnars Dagger called Drengalir. If you didn't know, yes, you can obtain the sSeax owned by Ragnar Lothbrok. Whilst it doesn't have the strongest attack stats out of the sSeaxes in the game, it does, in my opinion, have the best ability while you'll deploy a smoke bomb on a kill when outnumbered. Perfect for getting out of sticky situations. To get this sSeax, you'll first need to find and defeat 6 of Ragnar's lost Drengers scattered throughout England and Norway, which then triggers the quest to find the most famous Viking weapon, Ragnars Dagger. For those locations and a bit of extra info, just check out my video on it on screen now and again in the description. Moving on, we have the Soldier's Flail, which whilst on face value it doesn't hit the hardest, its perk will increase your speed when at full health, which can be useful especially if you're holding a dagger or hammer in your other hand. More speed means you'll get more hits in, which means more damage. This one is nice and easy to get. Simply head to the Hamptonshire region to a spot called Chippenham, where it'll be waiting for you inside the Longhouse. Again, any issues obtaining this, just check out my previous video on it. And now we come to the Twohanded Greatsword, St. George's Sword. This weapon is just as strong as Excalibur and far easier to obtain. It also has a perk where critical hits knock enemies to the ground, arguably making all fights easier, as more enemies on the ground means less of them trying to cut you down. If you haven't gotten this, it means you have yet to jump into river raids with your pal Van, and you'll eventually find this sword after completing a series of quests in there and then defeating a champion. There are tons of weapons you can obtain by river raiding, so definitely grab your longship and go sailing with the boys.
It'll be too late to order the cars now, matey!
And lastly, we come to another personal favourite of mine, the Bloodied Scythe. Not only does this have the strongest attack stats out of all the possible scythes, it also has a perk that increases your kill chance with light and heavy finishers on regular enemies with low health. In order to get this scythe, you'll have to own the Siege of Paris DLC, and then need to travel to a spot called Ponte Misera in the Amanoir region. For a more in-depth guide, just check out my video on screen now and in the description. And if you're umming and ahhing about whether to purchase that Siege of Paris DLC and obtain that Bloodied Scythe, then why not check out my review and whether it's worth your money. I actually think you'll be pleasantly surprised.